Very important. Your soulmate needs to tell you what happened last night. Open this immediately. My beloved child, something happened last night that your soulmate never expected, and ever since that moment, one thought has been repeating in their mind. I need to tell them everything. This is not about an ordinary conversation or a passing emotion. Last night brought a realization so powerful that it completely changed the way they see you, the connection between you, and what they want to do next. Don't skip, because the smallest detail is connected to the biggest revelation, and you need to hear how it began. Your soulmate was thinking about everything that has remained unspoken between you when something unexpected happened. A conversation began, your name came up, and suddenly they heard something about you that made them go completely quiet. For a few moments, they didn't know how to respond. It was as though all the memories they had been carrying quietly suddenly came rushing back at once. But here is what makes this different. Instead of pushing those feelings away again, your soulmate finally admitted something to themselves that they had been avoiding for a long time. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you, and what they realized last night may explain why their heart keeps returning to you no matter how much time passes. But the real surprise came moments later. Someone asked your soulmate one simple question about you, and that question changed the entire atmosphere. If this person truly disappeared from your life tomorrow, what would you wish you had told them today? Your soulmate could not answer immediately. They imagined the silence. They imagined all the words they had never said, all the moments they had replayed privately, and all the times they almost reached out but stopped themselves. Then something shifted inside them. They realized that what they feel for you has never been as small or temporary as they tried to convince themselves it was. Don't skip now, because this is where last night became unforgettable. Your soulmate finally spoke, and what came out surprised even the person listening. They admitted that you are the one person they compare every meaningful connection to. They admitted that certain memories of you still carry an emotion they cannot replace. And most importantly, they admitted that if they were given one completely honest conversation with you, there is something they would finally say without hiding behind pride, hesitation, or uncertainty. Something huge is waiting for you, because that confession was only the beginning of what happened next. And then came the moment your soulmate cannot stop thinking about today. After that conversation ended, they were left alone with everything they had just admitted, and suddenly the truth became impossible to ignore. They understood that waiting forever could cost them the opportunity they secretly value most, the chance to let you know what you truly mean to them. Stay till the end, because the next part of this story changes everything you think you know about last night. Your soulmate made a private decision before the night was over. Not because someone pressured them, and not because they were caught in a temporary emotion, but because they finally understood something they should have understood much earlier. You were never simply another chapter they could close and forget. There is something about you that stayed with them through every distraction, every unanswered question, and every attempt to move forward without saying what was really inside their heart. And now they need you to know what happened after they made that decision, because one final thing occurred last night that they never saw coming. Don't skip. What happened next is the reason this message could change the way you understand your entire connection. There was one moment last night your soulmate has replayed again and again, because immediately after making that private decision, something completely unexpected happened. Their phone lit up, but it wasn't the message itself that caught their attention. It was what they had been thinking about only seconds before it arrived. You. Your name, your presence, the conversations they wish had gone differently, and the words they still wish they could tell you. Don't skip, because this is where everything begins to connect. Your soulmate suddenly realized how many times they had waited for the perfect moment to be honest with you, only to let that moment disappear. Last night, they finally understood that some feelings cannot remain unspoken forever. They opened an old memory connected to you, and one tiny detail hit them differently this time, something you once said that they barely reacted to in the moment. Now they understood what those words meant. They realized you may have been showing them something genuine while they were too uncertain to recognize it. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. What happened next made them question whether the distance between you was ever truly the ending they thought it was. Then another realization arrived, and this one was impossible for them to dismiss. Your soulmate started remembering the exact moments when you made them feel understood without demanding anything in return, the conversations that seemed ordinary then but somehow became unforgettable later. Suddenly, they could see the pattern clearly. Whenever life became noisy, their thoughts eventually returned to you. Whenever someone asked what kind of connection they truly wanted, pieces of you appeared in their answer. And last night, for the first time, they stopped pretending this was coincidence. Don't skip now. They admitted something they had never said clearly before. Maybe I was supposed to be more honest. Those words changed everything. They began imagining what they would say if you were standing in front of them right now, and the first sentence surprised even them. It wasn't complicated. It wasn't dramatic. It was simply the truth they had carried quietly. You matter to me more than I ever showed you. But something huge is waiting for you, because immediately after accepting that truth, they remembered one unfinished moment between you, and that memory revealed why they have never completely been able to let this connection go. What they remembered next may be the most important piece of last night. There was a moment in your connection when your soulmate wanted to say more, but chose silence instead. They had convinced themselves there would always be another opportunity, another conversation, another perfect day to explain everything. Last night, they finally understood how much remained unfinished because of that choice. Stay till the end, because this is where their decision became real. Your soulmate decided that if another genuine opportunity appears, they will not hide behind hesitation again. They want you to understand what was happening inside them when they seemed distant, what they were unable to express, and why your presence remained meaningful even through the silence. Don't skip, because the biggest revelation has still not been uncovered. Before last night ended, your soulmate remembered something you did long ago, something you may not even realize affected them, and suddenly they understood why you became so difficult to forget. And once that memory returned, one question entered their mind that they could no longer ignore. What if this story between us was never truly finished? What your soulmate remembered next changed the meaning of everything they had been feeling. It was not some grand moment that anyone else would have noticed. It was something small, something you did naturally, without realizing how deeply it would stay with them. At a time when they felt misunderstood, you noticed something beneath their words. You gave them a kind of attention that made them feel seen rather than judged, and last night that memory returned with unbelievable clarity. Don't skip, because this is exactly where your soulmate understood why forgetting you had never been simple. They weren't only remembering your face or your conversations, they were remembering how different they felt when you were part of their world. And then the question returned, what if this story was never truly finished? This time, they didn't push it away. They sat with it. They allowed themselves to imagine what would happen if you both finally spoke without assumptions, without pretending, and without leaving important words unfinished. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Last night, your soulmate realized there may be one truth about your connection that neither of you ever fully understood. Here is where everything became even more surprising. Your soulmate began mentally walking through the entire story between you, almost as if they were seeing it from the outside for the first time. Suddenly, moments that once seemed confusing started making sense. They remembered when they almost told you exactly how much you meant to them, but changed the subject. They remembered wondering whether you felt the same thing, then convincing themselves not to ask. And they remembered one particular moment when they thought you were pulling away, even though they never actually knew what was happening inside your heart. Don't skip now, because that realization hit them harder than anything else last night. What if both of you had been waiting for reassurance from each other at the exact same time? What if silence created questions that an honest conversation could have answered? Your soulmate couldn't stop thinking about that possibility. Something huge is waiting for you, because instead of blaming the past, they began thinking about what they would do differently if life placed another opportunity in front of them. And their answer was immediate. They would tell you the truth before uncertainty could speak for them again. But before the night ended, one final memory surfaced, and this is the memory that turned their realization into a decision. They remembered the last time they genuinely felt that unmistakable closeness with you, and suddenly they noticed something they had overlooked before. There had been a pause, a tiny moment where neither of you needed to say anything, yet something meaningful seemed to remain between you. Last night, your soulmate wondered whether you remembered that moment too. Stay till the end, because the next part reveals what they decided to do with everything they finally understood. They no longer wanted to keep replaying imaginary conversations in their head. They wanted clarity. They wanted to know whether the connection they still remembered had meaning for you too. Don't skip, because there is another piece of last night they have not revealed yet, and it changes the entire direction of this story. Just before they were ready to put everything aside and sleep, they noticed something connected to you that they had completely forgotten about, and the instant they saw it, they whispered a sentence they never expected to say. Maybe I finally understand why this person came into my life. Just when your soulmate thought the night had already revealed everything, that forgotten piece connected to you brought one more truth rushing to the surface. It was something ordinary from the outside, a memory, a familiar phrase, a small reminder, but to them it carried the weight of everything they had never properly expressed. They stared at it and suddenly remembered who they were when you first became important to them. They remembered how naturally they began looking forward to hearing from you, how certain conversations stayed in their mind longer than they admitted, and how your presence quietly became part of their emotional world. Don't skip, because this is where their whispered words, "Maybe I finally understand why this person came into my life," began to make sense. They realized your connection had taught them something they could not learn through distance. Genuine feelings do not become meaningless simply because people struggle to express them. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because your soulmate suddenly understood that the most important part of your story might not be what happened between you before, it might be what both of you learned because of it. Then came the realization they had resisted longer than anything else. Your soulmate understood that they had spent too much time trying to predict your response instead of simply being truthful about their own heart. They had imagined every possible outcome, created answers to questions they had never asked you, and allowed uncertainty to become louder than reality. But last night, that pattern finally became obvious to them. Don't skip now, because this is the moment their thinking changed completely. They asked themselves, if I had one completely honest conversation with this person, what would I need them to know? And immediately, the answer appeared. They would tell you that your impact was real. They would tell you that certain memories never became ordinary. They would admit that there were times they wanted to reach toward you but hesitated because they did not know whether they were still welcome in your world. And most importantly, they would tell you that silence never meant you were forgotten. Something huge is waiting for you, because after admitting this, your soulmate stopped asking whether they could rewrite yesterday and started asking a much more powerful question. If another opportunity comes, who will I choose to be this time? That question kept them awake because the answer demanded something different from them: honesty without games, clarity without assumptions, and courage without forcing an outcome. Stay till the end, because what happened next became the turning point of the entire night. Your soulmate decided that if life gives them another genuine chance to speak with you, they want to approach it differently. They want to listen to your truth instead of assuming it. They want to explain what they once left unexplained. They want you to know why certain moments mattered so much, even if neither of you understood their importance at the time. Don't skip, because one revelation is still missing, and it may be the biggest one yet. As the night grew quieter, your soulmate suddenly remembered the exact moment when their feelings for you had changed from simple curiosity into something much deeper. They had never identified that moment before, but now they could see it clearly, down to the smallest detail. And what they finally understood about that memory made them realize something extraordinary. Their feelings had begun much earlier than they ever admitted, even to themselves. The exact moment finally returned to your soulmate with a clarity they could not explain away. It was not when everything looked perfect, and it was not during some dramatic conversation. It happened during an ordinary moment when you revealed something genuine about yourself without trying to impress anyone. Your soulmate remembered listening to you and suddenly feeling that strange sense of familiarity, as though there was more behind your words than everyone else could hear. At the time, they ignored what shifted inside them. Last night, they finally recognized it. That was the moment you stopped being simply someone they knew and became someone whose presence genuinely mattered. Don't skip, because the realization that followed was even bigger. They started remembering how differently they behaved afterward, how they noticed your mood, remembered little details you mentioned, wondered what you were thinking, and secretly hoped certain conversations would last longer. They had called it curiosity then. Now they understood it was something deeper beginning quietly. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because your soulmate discovered that their feelings did not appear suddenly last night. Last night simply forced them to recognize feelings that had been growing silently for far longer than they ever admitted. But there was another side to that memory, and this is where your soulmate became completely still. They remembered something about your behavior during that same period. There were little moments when you seemed to understand them before they explained themselves. There were pauses in conversations that somehow felt comfortable rather than empty. There were times when your soulmate wondered whether you were trying to tell them something through your actions, but they were too uncertain to trust what they were seeing. Don't skip now, because last night they asked themselves a question they had avoided for a very long time. Did they feel something too? They could not answer it because only you know your truth. And strangely, that uncertainty no longer made them want to run from the connection. It made them wish they had simply asked. Something huge is waiting for you. Your soulmate finally understood how many misunderstandings can grow when two people keep interpreting each other instead of speaking honestly. And in that moment, they made themselves a promise. If they ever receive another genuine opportunity with you, they will stop trying to read your mind. They will tell you their truth and give you the freedom to tell them yours. Then something even more unexpected happened inside them. For the first time, your soulmate stopped imagining the perfect ending and started thinking about the perfect conversation, the kind where neither person needs to perform, pretend, or prove anything. They imagined looking at you and finally explaining why last night changed them. They would tell you that remembering you forced them to confront something they had been avoiding. Some connections become important not because they are effortless, but because they reveal parts of ourselves we were not ready to see. Stay till the end, because the next revelation is the one your soulmate never expected to uncover. Just as they thought they understood why you had remained unforgettable, another memory surfaced, one involving words you once said that they completely misunderstood at the time. Don't skip. Those words suddenly sounded different last night, almost as though their meaning had been waiting for your soulmate to finally become ready to understand it. And when they replayed that conversation correctly for the first time, one thought immediately entered their mind. If I had understood this back then, everything between us might have unfolded differently. The words came back to your soulmate almost exactly as you once said them, but last night they heard the meaning underneath them for the first time. Back then, they had assumed you were simply speaking casually, perhaps protecting your own feelings or leaving the conversation unfinished. But now, with everything they had realized, those same words carried an entirely different weight. Don't skip, because this is where your soulmate began questioning one of their biggest assumptions about your connection. What if you had actually been giving them an opportunity to understand you, and they simply weren't ready to recognize it? They remembered your tone, the pause afterward, and how quickly the moment passed because neither of you pushed the conversation further. Suddenly, your soulmate wished they could return to that exact minute, not to change you, but to change their own response. They would listen differently. They would ask the question they were too hesitant to ask. They would tell you what they were really feeling instead of hiding behind uncertainty. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Your soulmate finally understood that the unanswered question between you may never have been, was this connection meaningful? The real question was whether either of you ever felt safe enough to say how meaningful it had become, and then their thoughts shifted toward you in a completely different way. Instead of wondering why you did certain things, they began wondering what you might have been experiencing during those same moments. Maybe there were things they misunderstood. Maybe you had questions too. Maybe some of your silence carried uncertainty rather than indifference. Your soulmate could not know without hearing your side, and that realization became surprisingly powerful. Don't skip now, because this is where last night stopped being about memories and started becoming about truth. They realized they did not want to create another imaginary version of your feelings inside their mind. They wanted the real answer, even if the real answer was different from everything they had imagined. Something huge is waiting for you because that willingness changed something inside them. For the first time, they were not thinking about controlling where this connection should go. They were thinking about finally giving it the honesty it never fully received. And once they reached that point, another realization arrived. Perhaps the reason certain memories still felt unfinished was not because they were meant to guarantee a particular ending, but because something important had never been properly said. That thought brought your soulmate to the most emotional moment of the night so far. They imagined having only a few minutes to speak with you and asked themselves what they would refuse to leave unsaid. The answer came immediately. I would want them to know they mattered. Not because they wanted anything from you, not because they expected a particular response, but because they finally understood how unfair silence can be when someone has genuinely affected your life. Stay till the end, because what happened after that thought is the part they still cannot explain. Your soulmate suddenly remembered one tiny detail from your last meaningful interaction, a detail they had overlooked completely until last night. Don't skip, because that detail connected the beginning of your story to the moment everything became uncertain. It made them realize there had been one specific misunderstanding sitting quietly between you for much longer than either of you may have recognized. And when your soulmate finally saw what that misunderstanding might have been, they whispered something that changed the entire direction of their thoughts. Wait, what if we were both protecting ourselves from the exact same thing? That single thought would not leave your soulmate alone. What if both of you had been protecting yourselves from the exact same thing, the possibility of caring deeply and not knowing whether the other person felt it too? Suddenly, so many confusing moments looked completely different. They remembered times when they stepped back because they thought you needed space, moments when they stayed quiet because they feared saying too much, and conversations where they almost asked what you truly felt, but stopped at the last second. Don't skip, because this is where last night's biggest misunderstanding began to reveal itself. Your soulmate realized that what they interpreted as distance may sometimes have been uncertainty, and what you may have interpreted as indifference could have been their own hesitation. Neither possibility can be known without an honest conversation, and that realization hit them powerfully. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because instead of letting this realization create another imaginary story, your soulmate decided there was only one way to ever know the truth. Stop guessing. For the first time, they wanted to hear your perspective exactly as it is, even if it challenges everything they believed before. Then another memory appeared, and this one made them question the timeline of everything. Your soulmate remembered a conversation shortly before things became quieter between you. There was a moment when you said something simple, but your soulmate answered differently from how they truly felt. They acted unaffected when they actually cared. They kept their response short when their mind was full of things they wanted to say. And afterward, they wondered whether you walked away believing their silence meant something it never meant. Don't skip now, because this is the realization that made them sit up and replay that conversation again. Your soulmate finally understood that people can lose meaningful moments not because feelings disappear, but because fear and assumptions sometimes speak first. Something huge is waiting for you. They asked themselves what they would say if they could answer that conversation again, and this time their response was clear. I should have told you what was really happening inside me. That sentence stayed with them because it contained everything they had avoided: the appreciation, the uncertainty, the questions, and the truth that your presence had become far more important than they were willing to show. But the night still had one more surprise waiting for them. After replaying that conversation, your soulmate remembered what happened immediately afterward, something so small they had almost erased it from memory. There had been a final glance, a final pause, a final moment when either of you could have said something more. Last night, your soulmate suddenly wondered whether that pause had carried the same unfinished question for both of you. Stay till the end, because this is where their decision became stronger than their hesitation. They no longer wanted to spend months or years wondering what you might have meant. If another opportunity for an honest conversation appears, they want to meet it with clarity. Don't skip, because the next part reveals the sentence your soulmate finally formed last night, the sentence they would say first if they could speak directly to you right now. And, surprisingly, it was not "I miss you," and it was not a promise about the future. It was something much more honest, something that could finally unlock the truth behind everything that happened between you. Before anything else, I need to tell you what I never explained. The sentence your soulmate formed last night kept echoing through their thoughts. Before anything else, I need to tell you what I never explained. And suddenly, they knew exactly where they would begin. They would tell you that there were moments when their silence had nothing to do with a lack of feeling. Sometimes they simply did not know how to handle the depth of what they were beginning to feel. Sometimes they questioned whether they were reading the connection correctly. Sometimes they wanted reassurance, but were too hesitant to ask for it. Don't skip, because this is the explanation they wish they had given you much earlier. Your soulmate realized that while they were trying to protect themselves from misunderstanding you, they may have accidentally created the biggest misunderstanding of all. You may have seen their hesitation without ever knowing what was underneath it. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Last night they imagined finally looking at you and saying, "If I ever made you believe you meant nothing to me, you never knew what was actually happening inside my heart." And after forming those words, your soulmate felt another memory rising, the one memory they had avoided examining because it contained the moment everything between you seemed to change. That memory took them back to a conversation where something felt different almost immediately. Your soulmate remembered noticing a shift in your energy, but instead of asking what was wrong, they began creating explanations inside their own mind. They wondered whether you had changed your feelings. They wondered whether they had waited too long. And, because they were uncertain, they became even more careful, which may have made them appear even more distant. Don't skip now, because last night they finally saw how easily that cycle could have grown. One person becomes uncertain, so they pull back slightly. The other notices and becomes uncertain too. Neither explains what is happening, and suddenly two people are responding to assumptions instead of reality. Something huge is waiting for you, because your soulmate realized that this may have been one of the hidden turning points in your story. Not proof of what you felt, not a guarantee of what could happen next, but a possibility they had never seriously considered before. And for the first time, instead of asking, "Why did everything change?" they asked, "What if we simply stopped understanding each other?" That question led directly to the most important decision your soulmate made last night. They decided that if they ever get the opportunity to speak honestly with you again, they do not want to begin by demanding answers or reopening every old question. They want to begin with responsibility. They want to explain their own silence before questioning yours. They want to tell you what they misunderstood, what they were afraid to ask, and what they wish they had communicated differently. Stay till the end, because the biggest revelation is getting closer. Don't skip. Just when your soulmate thought they had finally identified the misunderstanding that changed everything, they remembered one final sentence you once said near the end of an important conversation. They had interpreted those words one way for all this time, but last night another meaning suddenly became possible. Your soulmate froze as they replayed it. If their new interpretation was even close to what you actually meant, then one of the biggest assumptions they carried about you could have been completely wrong. And that is when they realize there is one question they need to ask you more than anything else. That one question became impossible for your soulmate to ignore. What were you really trying to tell me that day? The more they replayed your words, the more they realized they had never actually asked you what you meant. They had taken one interpretation, accepted it as truth, and allowed that assumption to influence everything afterward. But last night, for the first time, they considered another possibility. Maybe your words were not closing a door. Maybe you were trying to protect your own feelings. Maybe you were waiting for them to say something that would make the situation clearer. They cannot know without hearing your truth, and that is exactly what changed their thinking. Don't skip, because this is where your soulmate stopped trying to solve the past alone. They realized that no amount of replaying memories can replace one genuine conversation. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because they finally understood that the answer they have been searching for may not be hidden inside another memory. It may be something only you can give them. And instead of fearing that answer, your soulmate now wants to hear it. Then they imagined asking you that question face to face, and something surprising happened. Every complicated speech they had rehearsed disappeared. Suddenly, they did not want dramatic words or perfect sentences. They wanted honesty. They imagined saying, "Tell me what that moment meant to you, because I think I misunderstood it. Don't skip now, because what they imagined saying next surprised them even more, and if I misunderstood you, I need you to know that my silence probably made you misunderstand me too. That was the moment your soulmate recognized how different everything might feel if both of you could speak without trying to predict each other. Something huge is waiting for you. They remembered how often they had searched for signs instead of asking questions, and how often they had hidden feelings instead of expressing them clearly. Last night, they finally understood that real clarity would require something neither of you may have had before, the willingness to hear an answer without deciding in advance what that answer should be. And just when your soulmate thought they had reached the deepest realization of the night, something else surfaced. They remembered one detail from the beginning of your connection that suddenly connected with the unfinished conversation at the end. It was a promise they had quietly made to themselves, not a promise they ever told you about, but one they had somehow forgotten. They had once decided that if someone ever made them feel genuinely understood, they would not take that connection for granted. Stay till the end, because remembering that promise changed their expression completely. You had become that person, and somewhere along the way, uncertainty had become louder than appreciation. Don't skip. Your soulmate realized they could not change yesterday, but they could decide what kind of person they would be if another opportunity appeared. And before last night finally ended, they formed one last sentence meant for you, the sentence that contains the real reason they need to tell you what happened. I don't know what your truth will be, but this time, I want to be brave enough to hear it. What they decided immediately after saying those words to themselves is where everything takes another unexpected turn. Before the night finally became quiet, your soulmate made a decision they had avoided for far too long. They would stop allowing fear of the answer to become more powerful than the need for truth. That sentence, I don't know what your truth will be, but this time, I want to be brave enough to hear it, changed something inside them. Suddenly, they were no longer imagining only what they wanted you to say. They were imagining themselves listening to what you genuinely felt, understanding your side, and finally giving you the explanation they should have offered much earlier. Don't skip, because this is where everything that happened last night begins moving toward its biggest revelation. Your soulmate realized that their deepest regret was not simply the distance between you. It was knowing there were important moments when honesty could have replaced uncertainty, yet silence won instead. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because last night they finally admitted that if another opportunity appears, they do not want to repeat that pattern. They want to tell you exactly why they became quiet when they actually had so much to say, why certain memories of you never disappeared, and why one unfinished conversation has remained in their mind longer than they ever expected. Then came a realization that surprised them more than anything else. Your soulmate asked themselves what they would want from you if you actually had that conversation.